Have you ever walked away from a conversation with their words still echoing in your head, like a dull blade scraping over and over? They cut you off as if you were decor. They spoke in that flat, condescending tone like they were addressing an empty chair. Or worse, they stayed politely silent while their eyes said, as plain as day, "You're not worth my notice." Is that disrespect? No. It's a cheap performance by an insecure person. Only people hollow on the inside need to step on others to feel a little taller. But if you swallow it and keep quiet, the crowd assumes you lost. If you explode, they laugh because you lost control. So what would a Stoic do in this video? I'll show you 6 ways to face anyone who dares to look down on you, from ice-cold lines to the art of silence that makes them retreat into themselves. Master these, and you'll never leave another conversation feeling humiliated. If you've ever been belittled, comment "enough" below. Let this be the marker. From now on, you set the rules. And if you're here, like and share this video, hit subscribe and become part of Victory Stoic, a place where we don't run from pain. We turn it into power. Let's begin. 1 answer: with your eyes, not your mouth. Mark, 42, works in real estate in Dallas. He used to be a Marine, but his temper runs hotter than Texas in July. At a meetup, a co-worker named Kyle, the type who pokes for cheap laughs, stood up among the group and fired. Mark probably only knows how to yell at clients. Nobody trusts him to sell a house. A few people snickered. And right on cue, Mark shot to his feet, face blazing words like a machine gun. "You dare say that I sell twice as much as you?" He thought he was reclaiming dignity, but he'd volunteered to be the evening's entertainment. Result: Kyle smirked with 0 effort, and Mark became the clown who lost his cool. Now put a Stoic in the same spot. Same Kyle, same cheap line, but this time his target is Daniel, 39, a neurosurgeon. Kyle throws his jab eyes twitching around, waiting for the usual scene. Daniel simply looks him in the eye, no words, no facial flicker. The stare lasts a breath longer than normal, colder than a hotel air conditioner, heavier than any insult. Kyle stalls, gives an awkward laugh, then mutters, "Kidding, man." The room doesn't chuckle along. Everyone understands Daniel just turned Kyle into a fool, hurling pebbles at a mountain. The difference is, this provocateurs feed on reaction. They toss a cheap line, hoping you detonate, so the room will crown them in control. But when they meet a calm, unbothered gaze, they become beggars knocking at a locked door, ashamed of their own knocking. An audience that expected drama turns to them instead. They become the most ridiculous person in the room. Yale research has shown that intense exchanges, 80% of the message is carried by body language, especially the eyes. A steady gaze makes people feel seen through. It forces self-correction. A screaming fit only proves the other person has their hands on your emotional strings. Epictetus reminded us, it's not what others say that offends you, but how you choose to view it. Sometimes the strongest view is a silent stare, no argument, no defense, just a presence cold enough to strip the cheapness bare. Bottom line, a Stoic's eyes are a mirror. They don't speak, but they expose. When the other person sees himself there, petty, cheap, small, he falls into his own pit of shame. You don't need to open your mouth. He finishes himself off with his own tackiness. 2 separate feeling from ego. Here's a story about Anthony, 35, a software engineer in San Francisco. In his company, he's known as kind, competent, and easily teased. In a meeting, Jeff, mouth faster than brain, the type who throws cheap lines for laughs, said Anthony's always so quiet, I doubt anyone takes his opinion seriously. The whole room chuckled. As expected, Anthony flushed and scrambled. That's not. I'm not someone who talks a lot. The more he spoke, the more he stumbled. Jeff smirked. The room looked at Anthony with a mix of pity and condescension. One lame joke, and Anthony turned himself into an emotional trash bag for the room. The mistake: Anthony tied his ego to every word people said. One jab, equal sign, one stab. He handed others the key to his feelings and let them spin it like a radio dial. In that game, he was a puppet on strings. Now imagine a true Stoic there. Jeff quips, the room waits for fireworks. The Stoic sits still, eyes calm, maybe a faint smile, as if a parrot had repeated hello for the 1,000th time. No reaction, no explanation, no surrender of control. That composure makes Jeff the clown, a grown man hunting for laughs when no one's laughing anymore. Psychology calls this emotional detachment, separating feelings from the ego. When you don't identify with every attack, those words become air. Others throw stones. You don't offer your face. They throw, then have to pick the stones back up. If you let your ego jump, you've stuck your own head in the noose they tossed. Research by Dr. Ethan Kross, University of Michigan, shows that creating distance between yourself and your feelings, for example, shifting from "he insulted me" to "someone just said something insulting," reduces activity in brain regions tied to stress. You're no longer hostage to the personal sting, so you keep your posture. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Others can spit insults, but they can't force you to feel insulted unless you hand them the key. Ask yourself, who are they to deserve that key? A loudmouth Jeff at the office. A petty woman who pokes people at parties, they're not worthy. In short, separating feeling from ego means treating attacks like cafe background noise, present irrelevant. The attacker thinks he's landed a kill shot, but he's shadowboxing. Your composure sends the message, "You're not important enough to cost me my calm." That's the deepest cut a Stoic can deliver to someone who belittles him. 3. Counter with a drilling question. At a Chicago meeting, Brian, 41, a project manager, took a jab from a colleague named Steve. "This plan sounds like a freshman's idea." The room froze, waiting for Brian to blow. Instead, he looked at Steve and asked one simple question. "Why do you think that?" No raised voice, no bite, just a short question. Steve immediately fumbled, grasping for reasons, revealing he had nothing but vague envy. The room no longer saw Brian as the target. They saw Steve digging his own hole with a clever but empty mouth. That's the power of a drilling question. You kick the ball back to their feet. People who disrespect often lack solid reasoning. They launch emotional arrows to push you down because they already feel low. Confident, capable people don't need to snipe. It's the insecure who smear others to stand an inch taller. Ask why, and the spotlight hits their hollow center. The mask slips. It's not that you lack value. They're crushed under their own jealousy. In love, this shows up even louder. Emily, 29. Jake's ex kept sending barbs after their breakup. "Bet you're lonely, huh? Has anyone new tolerated your quirks yet?" It sounds contemptuous, but it's a clumsy play to keep the tether. Outside an arrow. Inside a plea. "Do you still see me? Do you still want me? Could we go back instead of fighting?" Jake replied with, "Why do you think that?" The facade cracked. Truth was, she didn't despise him. She hadn't let go. The poke was a probe. Do I still matter? The question exposed it. Harvard research 2017 notes that sarcastic attacks often spring from insecurity. They're an attempt to regain control. When you don't react and even ask back, they lose leverage. They must examine themselves instead of steering you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Why is the mirror? If there's substance, they'll present it. If not, their smallness shows. So when you use a drilling question, you don't shout or parry. You calmly lead them to reveal emptiness, envy at work, disguised longing in love. In every case, you exit as the higher party, the observer, not the puppet. 4. Prove with action, not words. On breakup day, Emily stabbed Ryan with, "There's nothing special about you. Your life will just tread water." For her, it slammed the door so she could leave as the winner. Ryan could have argued, ranted, or sent a page-long text. "You're wrong, I'm not that bad." The more he justified, the more he begged for mercy from the very person who dumped him. That's the real shame. Ryan chose differently. No speeches, no texts, no pity posts. He threw himself into work, trained, changed his diet, rebuilt a small but real life. 6 months later, he was leaner, fitter, steadier at work with some savings. No flashy flex, just the occasional photo running with friends or a clean home-cooked meal. One day a comment popped up from a gorgeous, wild-haired woman. "Make this again tonight, babe." Emily saw it. She lingered a beat, tapped in, read the short caption. A quiet truth rose that she didn't say, "I misjudged him." He moved up. I stayed put. He left me behind, one person full, one person hollow. That's the silent strike. No big stage, no mic, no lights, only real change in ordinary life. Reality is the fairest stage. When the one who belittled you has to face it, they swallow their own words. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." A Stoic doesn't pour energy into debate. He builds himself. The change itself is the slap. No need to say I've changed, they can see. No defense needed, facts are the proof. In love, this is the sweetest revenge. The person who shamed you must watch you grow stronger, steadier, worthier. They can pretend not to care, but inside, they've lost. Nothing hurts a belittler more than realizing you improved, and there's no place for them in your new path. Sorry, not sorry, there's no seat for them. 5, don't seek approval from those who belittle you. Here's a different case with the opposite mindset. Jason, 34. Bake in Denver kept stalking his ex Amanda on Facebook. She'd been the first to call him boring, nothing interesting. The word stuck like a splinter. Every photo she posted, he tried to prove to himself that if I change, if I succeed, she'll have to acknowledge me. He posted gym pics, group shots, even snuck in snarky coded statuses. The saddest part, he didn't live for himself. He waited for a like or comment from the same woman who belittled him. The longer he waited, the deeper he fell into dependency. Reality, Amanda never changed her mind. Not because Jason was worthless, but because people who decide to look down on you will always find reasons to keep you beneath them. The more you crave their approval, the more power they feel. The more you cling, the more puppet strings they have. That's dependency, holding your worth hostage and handing it to someone unworthy. Ask yourself, who are they to judge your life? Are they truly better than you, kinder, or just ordinary people, often far smaller than you? Why then treat them like idols, issuing certificates of value? A Stoic man knows the answer. No one has that right but you. Psychology backs this up. Research by Dr. Jennifer Crocker, Ohio State University, shows that people who hinge self-worth on others' approval suffer higher stress and more fragile self-esteem. The more you chase approval from those who sneer at you, the weaker you make yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. Absurd, we love ourselves most, yet let bystanders decide our value." So the lesson is clear: stop seeking validation from those who've belittled you. The more you seek, the lower you bow. The Stoic path is different. Validate yourself by living right, doing right, and then letting outcomes speak. When you stand firm, you don't need their stamp. They're the ones who must swallow their words. That's the most epic validation issued by reality, not signed by cheap judges. 6. Use cold, clean humor. At family gatherings, there's always a comedian who uses people as props. Aunt Sharon, for example, can't help herself from body jabs. At Christmas dinner, she glanced at Ben and said, "Wow, still haven't lost weight. You must eat a ton." The table chuckled by habit, not because it was funny, but because no one knew what to do. If Ben flushed and defended, "I'm working on it," she'd have more ammo. If he snapped, he'd be the rude one. Ben chose another route. He sipped his drink, smiled slightly, and said, dry as dust, "Yeah, probably why I've got the stamina to sit through these vintage jokes." It sounded like a joke, not an attack, but it was sharp enough to stall the room for a beat. Laughter died midair. The only person stranded was Aunt Sharon, the one who thought she'd delivered the night's punchline. That's the craft of cold humor. You don't strike head-on or show malice, yet the teaser runs out of air. The crowd can't fault you. It sounds like light banter. But the aftertaste is clear, the gag is over. The fire starter is the one choking now. Psychologists call this deflection humor, using wit to redirect. You don't dam the flow with anger, you pivot it so the instigator trips in their own script. The crowd doesn't see you as petty. They see poise, a single light line that closes the cheap show. Marcus Aurelius advised, reject your sense of injury, and the injury itself disappears. Sometimes the subtlest move is a wry line that leaves no next move. No need to cut deep, no blatant frost, just a smile and a dry sentence that makes them realize this game isn't fun anymore. Conclusion. Here's the core truth that the people who belittle you don't get to define you. They fling cheap arrows. Only you decide whether to let them stick. A Stoic isn't the one who screams to be right. He isn't the one who swallows humiliation either. He's the still center of the storm, needing no defense because his life and bearing speak for him. Stoicism doesn't turn you to stone. It turns you into steel that's been through fire, molten within, solid without. Don't let others drive your emotions. Take the wheel of your own mind. Remember this picture: you stand like a boulder in a river. Water roars, foam flies white, but when it calms, it's the current that has changed while you remain. Hold that line and the right people will find you. They'll enter the world you've built, no invitation required. Comment below. Stand firm. Lead strong to mark your choice of the Stoic road. Share this with a brother who needs it today. This is Victory Stoic. See you in the next video.